Hello there everyone, welcome to Second Thought's overview of Grom the Paunch of the Greenskins. I went through the initial turns and checked a bit of how the faction plays out, its strengths and weaknesses. In the end I'll give you some army compositions that I would try in my own campaigns, so that you can use or adapt to your playstyle. This is an overview, but not an in-depth guide. Without further, let's play then with Grom the Paunch. So for your short victory condition, you need to control Tor Ivres. Look at it here. It's really close by. Of course, it's across the sea, so you may have to establish a foothold and then proceed over there. And then you also need to occupy Loot Razor Sack 30 different settlements. Now, achieving this, you get +3 recruit rank. It's great, particularly for Grom. Like, he buffs some of the low-quality troops, and therefore you can have a better mid-game overall once you achieve this, which is really good. Now, the long victory, it requires the short victory condition, occupy Loot Razor Sack 75 different settlements, and to destroy basically all the minor greenskin factions. Now, considering that many of these will be defeated before by others, or that you can just confederate them very easily by just doing one battle against their leader and then you can confederate. So this is still a long campaign, but it's definitely doable. Now, the reward is +2 global recruitment. It could be better, but it does imply that at least that the Greenskins can really recruit a full army really fast. Now, Grom, he has access to Grom's Cauldron, so he has a walk against Ulthon, really. He has access to Grom's Cauldron, a very nice mechanic. He has -80 diplomatic relations with the High Elves, so there's going to be no peace with the High Elves. And his global recruitment duration is -1 for Goblin units. So it further emphasizes the deal that he's about going with the goblins. That's the idea that he should go. You know, he focuses on the goblins, and it's just a nice campaign to go through instead of focusing on different units. Let's go goblin wise. Now, climate is average to good, so there's plenty of suitable climates and unpleasant ones. Okay, so only uninhabitable is actual magical forest, ocean doesn't count, and chaotic wasteland, so it's kind of fine. But once you see it here, which I believe it's a better screen, then you realize the truth, which is that overall here everything is yellow. Everything is nearly yellow. There's some red here, so it's not easy to get a solid foothold. You know, most likely you're going to have to expand to the Ulthon Island, which does have suitable climate. So that's sort of the idea that you should go with. But yeah, it's not the easiest campaign actually to begin, and certainly not the easiest to achieve total domination with. You can try, by all means. You know, there's plenty of pleasant and suitable climate. Once you go to the north, it's much more difficult. Yeah, but I'll leave you to that. It's a difficult campaign, really, especially in the early game, but, well, you do have the tools, because, of course, you have a good early game with how you buff up the goblin units. So your starting province is just a single settlement. Now, this implies that you will always need to expand fast in order to obtain better rounds. Now, adding to the issue, you don't really have nearby any 3 or 4 settlement provinces, which is a pain. It's one of the biggest advantages for the Greenskins is that they can get additional recruit slots per settlement in the province. So this is lost just because of Grom's position. You know, you don't take really that much advantage of that. Still, you do start near the ocean, and you may benefit from any goodies here. And you start kind of surrounded by enemies, though, including wood elves, which are a pain. So this is at least a difficult start, even if you have what it takes to crush it. Typical expansion then will always be like you have to control some sort of a foothold, and then you can decide going against the high elves, or maybe going down, or going through Athaloran. I wouldn't recommend it, but it's really up to you. Typically going into Ulthon as quickly as possible is always a good idea, because of the suitable climate, of course, and that will help in many ways. So diplomatically, you're part of the evil tide. So it cannot be easy to gain friends near you, given how everyone is against you, really, especially in terms of the Bretonia factions, the Wood Elves, then the High Elves, and the more they expand, the worse it becomes. But still, you may gain some friends with Skaven, particularly Kid Claw, with the Vampire Coast, and that's why I'm mentioning these sort of ideas for outposts, as you can see here. So, yeah, the outposts should be possible to obtain their missile units to complement your forces, and of course, from the Skaven, you know what to take, and from the Vampire Coast as well. By all means, you can take other units, but these are the ones that I would complement to ensure that I would get, you know, some crazy good army compositions to have some fun with. So Confederation is quite simple. Once you defeat the specific warlord, you know, the faction leader of that minor Greenskins faction, it will prompt you to actually confederate them. So it's a nice idea so that you can always, you know, confederate the minor factions, and it's really a cool mechanic, especially for the Greenskins. It helps so much for them gathering, you know, a little bit more grounds and more terrain without having too much issue, really. So the Wog is quite a nice mechanic. It's a great mechanic. So what you do is you basically keep fighting until this bar above fills in. You have some debuffs or nice buffs, which includes growth, control, winter magic, leadership, all good things. And once you start the walk, you click that button, and then you can select a target. Now, to select a target, you have to consider what the target is, if it is elves, if it is humans, if it is dwarves, and you have a different effect once you get the trophy. So if I get a trophy from defeating these guys, it will be research rate increase, ammunition, and missile strength. But if I fight against the stunties, so the dwarves, it will give me construction cost reduction and weapon strength faction-wide. And the number here implies that if you're fighting or causing a walk against one of the top factions ranked, you're gonna get a different trophy than if you're fighting only the rank 30 and below. So basically you should always go for the biggest trophy that you can get, and also the biggest trophy that you can get safely, of course. You know, don't aim to the first, because you're going to be at war with them, so don't aim for someone that you can't possibly do. But in this case, I'm going to declare here on the stunties, and then you can dedicate either to Mork or you can dedicate to Gork. And that depends of the weapon strength that you're going to get, or the missile strength. That's basically it. So always ensure that you have an idea. The other effects are the same. But in this case, I do have some missile forces, so maybe I'm going to go for the missile strength, or maybe just the weapon strength. No, I'm going to go for the missile strength. So now I'm at war with those guys, and what happens next is that every single one of my armies now is followed by a different one. So precisely this is the big idea behind the walk. All your armies actually have a secondary army they'll fill in, and then I can attack this with basically double armies. And you know, it's really a nice mechanic, really a cool mechanic. Now the scrap mechanic. Scrap, basically it's a unique currency that you gain. You can gain it mostly from looting, from raiding, from fighting, really. That's mainly it. Okay, and then you can use it up for a variety of things, including the technologies, for instance. Some of them require that. Actually, I'm going to select one right now, and you can see that some of them have these requirements, so be wary of that. But one of the main ideas, of course, and the main purpose of it is to use it here. To use it on scrap upgrades, which implies you need some technology for it, but what it means is that you can give, for instance, these guys bonuses as infantry, or you can give them some perfect vigor. So it's not the same for every single unit. For instance, for goblins, it can give them scrap armor, so more armor, which is always nice, and spiky weapons, which is armor-piercing weapon damage. So considering Grom's force, I would likely put the goblins with some spiky weapons, so that they are much better in the fight, you know. And yeah, that's the sort of idea. It's such a customizable idea for every single one of your forces, which is really, really great. Now, after you finish up a walk, actually, you're going to have a big trophy or biggest trophy, you know. So, for instance, completing this, I'll get weapon strength faction-wide 8% and construction cost minus 10% for all buildings. Really good. But I'll also gain some of these specific regiments of renown. You know, it really depends on the trophy. For instance, if I finish the bigger trophy, I'll get the armored squeakhoppers. If the big trophy, I'll get the lava spider rider archers. I can also get the biggest trophy to give me a feral hydra or a feral wyvern. So all of this is really nice because it's just an additional idea that you can have. Okay, it's additional idea of forces that you can have, and it synergizes well, of course, with the overall rewards that you already get from the WOG. Okay, now Grom specifically. He has the Grom's Cauldron. So you can see that I already have an effect here, the Shroom and Awful Sausage. So it gives me growth for all provinces, it gives me regeneration for all armies, goblins and night goblins. So this mechanic just changes so well what the faction becomes, because you have so much versatility. You know, you have stuff that like you see there, it can give berserk for all orc infantry units, all armies, or it can give dulled senses for trolls and giant units. I really don't know what that implies, but definitely there's got to be something else there, you know. Or I can give some physical resistance for goblin and night goblin infantry units. So the basic idea from this is that you can just build your own army according to the ingredients that you gain, and that's really cool because you can adapt to that playstyle and then fight on that playstyle. It's really always nice. You know, I only have 2 ingredients here and I only have 1 recipe, but of course you do have a lot of recipes that you can get, and when you get those and when you use those up, it's really cool because you get all those effects, and it's really nice. So for the most part, this mechanic is what actually allows Grom to just focus on goblins or really anywhere else. One of the best mechanics always in the game, honestly. In terms of province edicts, we have the construction cost for all buildings province-wide and income from all buildings. You know, it's always having to do with money. Really. Then we have recruitment cost minus 10% and local recruitment capacity. Typically I would tell you not to use this, but with Grom you might have to because you don't have a lot of recruitment slots, and Greenskins actually kind of revolve around it. It's really important for them. And then we have the control, growth and corruption. So basically one of that fixes everything in your provinces really well, really cool. There's not a lot of them, but they're all very, very adequate actually. So in terms of army stances, you do have raiding camp. So this one is interesting. It does not cost movement. It does not cost movement. It's perfect at any moment. It gives you immunity to attrition. It enables replenishment. It gives you scrap per turn. It's really cool. Just ensure that you're doing this, you know, in the enemies or neutral locations. You know, of course, it will count as you raiding them, so be wary if you're doing this in a place where you don't want them to be angry at you, you know. Then we have the typical underway, so it's really cool. This allows you to traverse, of course, the map. For instance, right now I declare the WOG here against the clan Angrund here against Pelagar. So what I'm gonna do is I'll likely move forward to here to this area, and then I'll just transpose this using the underway. Such a nice tactical advantage that you can have. And then we have the ambush, typical one. Okay, it hides you until discovered or the battle is initiated. Okay, and then we have the forced march. So pretty much what you would need actually from a faction like this one. You know, some good tactical advantages, and the raiding camp just helps so much in ensuring that you can, you know, replenish or have no attrition, and at the same time you're raiding. It's really a cool one. So in terms of buildings, as always with the Greenskins, not something that it's spotted immediately, but you do gain +1 local recruitment capacity for each settlement in a province. The biggest issue is that your starting province is only a 1 settlement province, so you kind of lose that ability or that improvement. So, well, you do have some stuff to, you know, add to it, but it's kind of difficult, So, now you do have a nice specific building here that gives you income, growth and recruit rank for trolls units, and of course unlocks the recruitment of stone trolls. So you can get to this one and just basically get that income, that growth, and of course start recruiting those stone trolls, which is always nice. In terms of buildings for your military, you have 7 buildings, and only 1 can actually be built on a minor settlement. So most likely need a second, maybe even a third province for Grom to effectively build every single military building and still have some income and growth, of course. units. Now, tier 3 units are somewhat lacking typically, but not with Grom. Grom can buff, you know, even the low quality nasty skulkers, even the goblins and the goblin archers. Still gonna become your staple if you wish, especially with the pump wagons, the snotlings. It's really great, really a nice composition. So of course tier 4, tier 5, it's where you have your black works, it's where you have Ragnarok spiders, you know. The giants is always great with the greenskins. Don't overlook it, it's a great piece. And then we have the rogue idols as well, or the doom divers. So tier 4 is really cool, but with Grom, you can forget about that. Oh, tier 3 is lacking. No. They have great units because, of course, you're buffing them up like hell. Now, infrastructure. You have a nice control building and Lord Recruit rank, and of course the hero recruitment for the Goblin boss is here. So hero capacity for them, less corruption, more recruit rank for Goblin boss. Yeah. It's really a cool one. And then we have growth, casualty replenishment rate, always nice, a basic income building, and then what I call the jack of all trades, so something that has something for all moments. So campaign movement range is really nice, not really for the massive Orcal, you don't need it, it's a very small province, but for other places of course it may be really important so that you can keep up with the enemy, you know. Sometimes people are complaining about the movement range of the enemy. Well, not if you build these buildings. Then you have income from post-battle loot, faction-wide, which is always nice. Income from raiding to all armies, which is always cool. So the more you get these raiding stashes, the better for overall for your faction. The more you're going to benefit from those. And of course, income from sacking and looting settlements plus 2%. Don't neglect this. You know, even 10%. It's already even 10 buildings of these, which is kind of easy to obtain at one point. It's like 20% sacking and looting, which is, you know, it's already a very good way to increase your income overall. Now, we also have to mention the research. Now, speaking of research, it's very powerful. Not only can buff most of your low and high quality troops, so you can get the buffs for your goblins really early, really fast, and that helps specifically Grom. So it's really cool. You should concentrate on those. That's what I was going for. You know, just getting this leadership, casualty replenishment rate, and physical resistance. Oh yeah, that's what I want. So just to ensure that you get a very easy, or at least an easier early game. Now, of course, you can get up to a lot of stuff in the late game, so you can buff even the Ragnarok spider unit. So by the end of the research the research tree, you're gonna be your armies are gonna be really powerful, and you also get 2 unique lords here. So they have specific abilities. It doesn't show there, but they both focuses on specific things. So Rachnik Spider Claw focuses on spiders, of course, as it is it's intended, and especially with Grom, he becomes really powerful. And we have Ogluk the Horrible, which focuses on orcs. So not as powerful under Grom, but still a powerful lord in itself. So yeah, there's definitely some good stuff for different army compositions, which is what I really love. So skills are divided into your Lord specific ones, then your yellow or combat. Note that Grom specifically does not have a caster line, he's not a caster. Then we have the red line or army, and then we have the blue line or campaign. Now Grom focuses of course on both goblin units and chariots and some other pump wagons, for instance. So that's the sort of idea that you have for this campaign. Red line is one of the best in the game because it's organizing units in terms of their types, so it's going for goblins and night goblins here, or then it goes with the boys for all the orcs, which means that you have several types of units with under just one skill, which means you have a wide variety of units, wide variety of roles in the army, which is really cool. So yeah, that's one of the things that I really love about it. Blue line has upkeep reduction over here, but you don't have anything that gives you replenishment. Typically your lords, especially legendary lords, will have that, but still for the other lords it's going to be a problem. What you want to typically use if you need that is the hag, because she can give replenishment rate to your army, which is, you know, always a good an important stat, especially in higher difficulties. In essence, we do have the black orc that also gives replenishment to orc units, although of course you may avoid that with Grom, because you might just want to do the good old goblin only campaign, which is always nice with Grom. Now, it's one of the least expensive troop rosters in terms of what you need to spend in the red line, so you can take advantage of that early, and then you have units upgraded in no time. It's really cool. So in terms of the red line skills, the units affected here, because of the division between the goblins and the orc units, it's really easy to come up with a variety of unit compositions without really spending too many red line skills. And even when I try to have a lot of expenses in terms of red line skills, I'm actually pushing it. So let's see, for instance, Grom. He gives so many buffs to goblins, and it's, don't just check this out, this part beneath here, which would already imply, you know, that you could have some of these compositions really fine. You also have to remember the cauldron. So with the cauldron, then you can really build up any of these armies and even bring them to the late game. So just some basic spear units and basically some anti-infantry units, trust me, they'll do the work, especially in the early game, and then into the late game with all those buffs. You can do that. But if you're not confident, or if you're playing on a higher difficulty and you don't want to just go to the goblins, of course you can use some black orcs, some trolls, some Ragnarok spiders. I just added in some pump wagons for style. Really, that's the sort of idea. Nothing stopping you, of course, from using different types of compositions, going to the night goblins here if you choose, or into the stone trolls, you know, just some goblins to hold on any low quality cavalry. Of course, under Grom things may change. You may just use the compositions from Grom with these guys. Okay, so that's sort of the idea. These are the basics that I recommend, but by all means, you know, these are kind of sweeper armies, stuff that you don't put up against a stack of chosen, but that you can definitely play against many of the enemy armies that are, you know, of lower quality. And then of course you can always use the typical armies, you know, with black orcs, big guns, iron boys, some stone trolls and Ragnarok spiders, or just going to some cavalry units here. This is just a more mobile force with just some doom divers, but note how effective it is in terms of redline skills, which is always what I recommend. Now in terms of the heroes, note that I always put these guys as a what is called, they're just here to tell you that you should have a caster hero at least, and you should have a melee hero at least. Whatever you choose, it's really up to you. Really up to you. If you want to have all heroes, by all means. If you want to have double caster, triple caster, whatever you choose, just make sure that you have a plan for it. That's what I mean. My plan is to always have at least one caster outside of the Lord, so that the Lord can be, you know, a melee Lord. I find it more easier to spec, you know. And then you can have, you know, an additional support Lord or a support hero, just to either buff your troops or help them out in the front line, or just to keep an eye on your caster, make sure that it's not attacked by others, you know, act like a bodyguard sort of idea. You know, that sort of thought process here. So Grom plays out very differently than other Greenskin lords, and focuses a lot on goblins, on the cheapest units, chariot units, pump wagons. That's going to be the main idea, and you're going to have a lot of fun with it. That alone gives him a distinct feel, and they're really good under his control. Now, adding to this, you do have quite a nice, unique location compared with other Greenskins, very much surrounded by enemies, too close for some legendary lords for comfort. Not the easiest campaign to start with, but although Grom does have great options to overcome those early challenges, so it's kind of, I don't want to say it's a very difficult start because it doesn't feel like it for me, but it may be if you're a new player, so just be wary of that. Now, your army consists of great damage dealing infantry, good missiles and artillery, great monsters and single entities, good chariots, cheap units in all categories. Note, here's the advantages for Grom, because he makes those cheap units be really powerful. Lacks an anti-large halberd infantry and has only average cavalry. Now, replenishment is good. You do have great options for it now, but most of the nearby lands here, remember, they are unpleasant, so just remember that it's a little bit more difficult than what we are used to. I believe still, now it is time to get cooking with Grom the Paunch.